Hello, everyone. I'm Bill Darcy, CEO of the NKBA. Thank you for supporting NKBA Live. Welcome to Brave New Business Week 2. We have over 1,000 of you joining today. Very, very impressive. Thank you for supporting NKBA today. A few housekeeping items before we get into discussion. This forum is eligible for 1/2 CEU credit. So certified members, please be sure to log in to your NKBA profile and record that. I do want to acknowledge the beautiful design behind me by our friend Sandra Diaz Velasco, a multi-year, multi-award winner in NKBA's annual design competition. We'll be taking questions at the end as time allows. If you do have a question, you can submit that by clicking on the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen, not the chat feature, please, in that Q&A function. Our team will get to as many as possible. Today, we want to dive into some of the new realities of the COVID-19 pandemic and its impact on housing, remodeling, and supply chains. Joining me is our dear friend and strategic partner, John Burns, CEO of John Burns Real Estate Consulting, and his colleagues, Todd Tomalak, Principal, and Steve Basten, Senior Manager of Building Products. For over a year, we've been working with John and his team as part of our ongoing market research, most notably the Kitchen and Bath Market Index, or KBMI. John's going to talk to us about macro conditions and an overview of various geographic regions. Todd is going to dig into the remodeling space, and Steve will talk to us about the supply chain. So without further ado, let's just jump right in, John. The economic implications from COVID-19 are rapidly changing. What does the market look like right now, and do we have a sense of expectations for the next few months?
Yeah, we've completely transformed our business from kind of a monthly data collection to a daily and weekly real-time data. So I'll do my best to bring you up to date and to give some color, because I know you've got people all over the country, and this is the timeline is definitely playing out differently by geography. So if you look at most of the March data you're seeing, it was pretty good, but every market had what I'm calling their D-Day. For us, it was March 13th. That's when we sent everybody home in our company. That was almost 4 weeks ago. By March 23rd, there was 9 states that were in lockdown. By March 26th, there was 21 states. By March 30th, it was 30 states. So just to bring it, some of the data people are reading, at the end of the month, there were still 20 states that were not in lockdown. Now we're up to 42. So I'm looking to Washington and California as some of the earliest ones in. New York has its own issues, which are just horrendous. For how things have played out there, because they're about 4 weeks in, and as an early indicator of stability for everybody. What we saw there, and what I'll point out to your audience is, I have found that the new home sales are a very good leading indicator for just about everything, including even remodeling and spending. And here's how it played out. So if week 1 was people were at 100% of capacity, week 2 was about 85%, week 3 was about 60%, week 4 was about 35%, and now in week 5 it's about 15%. So the world kind of kept going with people they were already talking to, but things have slowed down. The early results have been pretty good. Our clients are still optimistic. Even on the remodeling, we saw 11% of projects canceled by March 17th. It's only 14% now, so that's not significant. There's a couple things I think people need to pay attention to. So it's very clear that the earliest hit was the lowest paying jobs. What I'm finding is not clear amongst the world is that the current hit includes high paying jobs. Every payroll day hurts. So this morning's payroll was the first one where we had the March 31 payroll, and you saw there was another 6 million people who filed unemployment in the last week. Think of this. 11% of Americans have filed unemployment in the last 3 weeks, and not everybody got the paperwork in. That is a huge number. And even though it is skewed to people who are less likely to be doing remodeling projects, it does include people that are remodeling their kitchens. There's a demographic shift going on. We did a 9,000 hour research project on demographics, and we have a chief demographer and we've been studying what's going on in China and other things, there are going to be some shifts coming out of this. One, sadly enough, and fortunately, thank God not for me, is it looks like there's going to be a lot more divorces. Hey, that's a red flag if you've got a couple who's not getting along that you're currently working with, but that's an opportunity because it's going to create more single households coming out of this too. If you've been helping a lot of the fix and flip guys who have been remodeling their kitchens and bathrooms to make the home a lot nicer and get that premium, we are working with a lot of them. A lot of them, the big ones are clients. The lenders to them are clients of ours. We've seen that industry pulled back dramatically. So if you've been selling into that space, I would expect that to slow quite dramatically. A lot of those guys look like they're cash businesses, but they're actually borrowing money from non-banks. You're probably not playing too much in the apartment market. That's the sector we think is going to get hit the hardest. And if you're looking for some confidence in the timeline of all this, I highly recommend that you see some of the interviews that Bill Gates has done. He did one yesterday on LinkedIn. He studied the living heck out of this for a long time. He knows what he's doing. I'm paying attention to him because so far everything's been right, but he's thinking it's going to be a 10-week lockdown, not some of these 2 and 4 week things that we're hearing. And if it's shorter than that, we're likely to go back into a lockdown again. So that's a tough pill for a lot of us to swallow. His view is that it's probably about 18 months to economic stability again. I'm very much in that camp too. So I'm delivering some sobering news here, but it's great to be hopeful, but I want you to be running your business with the most realistic assumptions you can. Home buying is likely to come back slowly. I firmly believe remodeling is going to come back a lot quicker. We've been monitoring a lot of great Google trend data. Some of this stuff my staff is coming up with is just amazing. People hate their house and they are doing a ton of DIY projects right now. And I think as soon as they can get contractors back in the house, they're going to be moving to allowing that to happen. And I won't spend too much time on the geographies because you probably know when your particular area went into shelter in place. But that would be week one. And look to California and Washington particularly Northern California probably is the first to stabilize. And then, you put my photo up here, which was a huge mistake. Todd and Steve do all our best research. So we're going to turn it over to those two.
Yeah, well, thank you, John. That was a great macro view. So Todd, let's deeper dive into remodeling. Before COVID hit, business was robust. John was at KBiz and preparing us for an even bigger boom. However, certainly what our members are telling us is just what John was saying, delays over the past 6 weeks, as well as some cancellations. How is the national conversation affecting consumer confidence across the board in remodeling?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question because coming into this crisis, we were very positive about kitchen and bath remodeling. I think our forecast was between 6 to 8%, leaning towards more growth within the kitchens. Part of the story there was that it turns out that people are much more likely to remodel their kitchens when they're over 15 years old, or their bathrooms when they're older, and we're comping now all those kitchens and baths that were done in the early to mid 2000s. So in addition to that, now we're facing issues that are facing some of the more near-term confidence issues. So for instance, how they're feeling about their future home prices. That's a big driver of how much they spend. So what's changing today that we're unpacking is how many projects that people had planned that they were now going to postpone into a later time or outright cancel. So the data that John mentioned was for all types of remodels, so everything from like windows and decking to kitchen and bath. We're working on kitchen and bath numbers now, but the numbers we have right now suggest about 14% of remodels in general, the plug has been pulled. And there's another 28% kind of at play that are postponed projects. So the timing of those will be interesting to watch. If they're white collar, some of those postponed projects, we could see them turn into cancellations too. One thing that I am kind of encouraged about though, is when we look at the mix of who's canceling versus who's postponing, we tend to see a lot more cancellations, almost 2 to 1 on the younger than 35, the first time buyer segment. Whereas the older buyers, 45 plus, 55 plus, it's almost the opposite, where they're twice as likely to postpone rather than cancel. And just thinking about that relationship for a little bit, those are the buyers those older buyers who have the most home equity. Those are the buyers who are financially probably in the best situation. So it makes sense that they wouldn't cancel at this point. They also tend to be the highest dollar kitchen and bathroom models. So we're working through the timing of that recovery of when we think they'll come back online and do their projects. It's probably going to be a month by month or quarter by quarter view, depending on how late we see this recovery begin.
Do you see anything, you talked about the demographics of the age, millennials or younger buyers, as far as canceling at higher rates? Do you see those more geographically driven, like, Austin and Denver and markets like that, or it's more national?
Yeah, so you can take kind of the cascade of where the virus is hitting the hardest, and there's a pretty direct impact in terms of how many people are canceling in those footprints. So I'll just give you for example, that let's take that 14% cancellation number that we talked about. That number doubles if you look at New York. Almost, I think what's the number I have? In New York City, 24%, New York State, 24% cancellation and 2x that postponed. We're seeing elevated cancellations in Texas. Clearly they've been hit by oil prices, California too. So it's probably going to cascade, as it slowly moves across the Midwest. We'd expect Chicago to do the same thing. The good news is even in the worst hit state, so New York would be our example, you lose about 24% of projects and they skew towards the lower ticket. A lot of that is going to be the marginal projects that weren't that high dollar. If you look at foot traffic data, so we spend a lot of time just trying to get early reads on how people are changing their behavior. Foot traffic data of how many people are physically walking into, say, a Home Depot. And I know that that's not, most kitchen and bath projects, that's just a sample. But Home Depot foot traffic is up over 20% this month versus the month before. That's more than Costco was up. And probably a piece of that is that people are going and buying freezers and maybe buying, some cleaning supplies. But if we look at Google search data, like what John mentioned, terms like DIY paint, DIY bathroom remodel, DIY bathroom floor mat, all of those things are elevated. So there is a sense that people are stuck in their homes looking at a space that they don't like. And to kind of loop back on that first comment that I made, none of this coronavirus situation changes the fact that they're sitting on a 15-plus-year-old kitchen that they didn't enjoy and they were planning on addressing it later. It's just a timing issue and a question of how much they spend when they do. For near term, it'll hurt the average ticket. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say that I just got a request for an interview today because there was an article published on paint, and should be airing on Fox News tomorrow about my opinion on how paint is then driving that continued interest in that remodel. It's all the things that we're sitting around in our houses, spending a lot more time staring at things that we don't like, and how that over time, whether it's DIY or whatever, kind of influences people to pursue or continue on the same pathway to the project.
I would love to see, and I haven't seen any good data on this, maybe we'll get some, but I just have to think you have a huge section of society that's locked down. And I know I've seen studies based on how much hours in the day people normally spend in their kitchens, or it's one of the most popular rooms of the home, people entertain in their kitchens, but that was probably nothing versus what they're doing now. And so if you hated your kitchen before, now you really hate it. And there's a premium to, if you're not moving anywhere, assuming people get through this financially, I've seen other data too suggesting that the amount of time people are spending shopping at home, looking at different features is drastically improved. So there's probably a little bit of a backlog of focus on how much people dislike their current space.
You think anything to do with the fact that the boom, we were, in a boom market, and coming into this, the recovery factor will, you take into consideration, what we just were talking about, how you're looking at your kitchen and your bathroom and you're getting more frustrated with it. And then you had a good market leading in. The optimism on the outbound side. I mean, again, we're focused on people's health and safety. I mean, we need to worry about our families and fundamentals of going to the grocery store right now. But as we come out of it, potentially there is a big upside.
Yeah, I think it's probably dependent on your time horizon. If you're looking at a 2-year, 3-year, 5-year window, all those homes are still old. They don't have, the features don't look good. And also John will probably, I'd like to hear John's thoughts on this too. So much of people's willingness to invest in their home relates to the stability of their home prices. So we're giving a lot of thought to where home prices, where that floor might be, how far it falls. But we know that if you're staying in your home longer and you feel that your home price is relatively more stable, it's a lot better. The home prices are in a lot better state today than they were pre the prior crisis, just in terms of an inventory issue. That'll kind of point to the answer.
Did you want to comment on that for John before we go to Steve?
Yeah, I don't have a percentage yet, but we're betting home prices are going to fall. How much, we're not quite sure, just because demand's going to decline and supply listings is going to go up. And then Todd, through just tremendous regression analysis, has shown the biggest corollary actually with remodeling spending is income growth in excess of inflation. And so for your clients whose incomes aren't going to be touched by this, they're going to be fine. But those who are going to be touched, and maybe those that have to deplete some savings, that's going to be a blow. So there's some that are going to be exactly what you said, optimistic and let's go, go, go. But I think there's a percentage who are just going to have to say, we're going to have to defer this for 2 or 3 years until I get my feet back under me financially.
That makes sense. So let's go to Steve. Tell us what's happening supply chain wise in the remodeling market. How much was that pipeline already? What was in the pipeline? Do we have a sense of where the delays will start affecting our designer and remodeler members?
Yeah, thanks, Bill. We've spent a lot of time looking at supply chains globally and here domestically in the US. And one thing we're really reminded of is that a lot of building products do come from overseas. 31% of all building material imports come from China, 16% come from Canada, 16% come from Mexico, and then 3 to 4% come from places like Japan and Thailand and Italy, Germany. So, quite a bit of materials at the macro level are coming in from overseas, but particularly for kitchen and bath products, there's even a higher amount. You look at lumber and other commodity products, those are pretty much domestic supply bases. But if you look at a category like kitchen appliances or plumbing fittings, those are much more exposed to places like China, places like Germany. And it's also a price point story too. Really kind of those barbells, the low price point products and then the high price point products. Luxury products come from Europe, and those lower price point products tend to come in a box from OEM. So really is a category by category type of analysis that we've really taken, and also at the price point level. But that said, the supply and demand balance is probably about where it should be right now, because we saw a backlog in extended lead times for a lot of products coming out of China before the US started to shut down and before demand started to shut down. We do a survey every month, and we asked a lot of dealers, which products are you having trouble getting? And we heard, cabinet hardware, kitchen and bath hardware, accessories, things like that. But as projects have started to slow, demand has cooled, so those Chinese factories can start to catch up. We're really monitoring it closely, very much a category by category type of analysis that you need to take to really understand the risk. But we're here to help. So if there's anyone in the NKBA membership that really needs to understand their category, we're happy to go deep and help you guys figure it out.
Thanks, Stephen. Maybe that segues right into some questions.
Todd, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I do, but let's hear the questions.
Leanne or Sherry, you want to pose what you're seeing come in through the Q&A?
Yes, we have a question about, in terms of remodeling specifically and remodeling projects, can you isolate which areas of projects people will spend on?
Yeah, I'll take that one. So We can. The answer is though that we're still kind of working through the layers. Initially, so if you think about who lost their job first, retail workers, hospitality workers, thinking about the income group and the kind of the price point that they would normally shop, we saw most of the hit to remodeling projects to things like windows. I actually think longer term windows is going to be relatively fine, but kitchen and bath had less of an impact. What I worry about is as the next shoes begin to fall, some of the new jobless claims that we saw, the huge number that came out today, the ones that will come out in the next several weeks, not all of those will be retail workers. Some of those will be higher income workers. And that will mean pretty significant hits to income. And those would have been the kitchen and bath projects that would have been postponed, waited for later, and then now turn into cancellations. So we're scrubbing those numbers pretty closely. We'll have more in the future.
Thank you, Todd. Another question is, if we previously had lack of skilled workers, what will happen when those trades are in high demand once things get back to normal? Will the cost of construction spike or return to normal?
John, I'd like to hear your thoughts on that one.
Yeah. Well, the skilled workers are still there. I think they've got less to do. I know the home builders are scrambling. Thank God they're essential construction because they're trying to keep their crews because they're afraid they're going to lose them. So I have heard a few stories about skilled workers from Mexico going back to Mexico, and I'm not sure they're going to get back in, but I don't think we're going to have the same shortage that got caused out of 2008. If anything, I think if you get to a little bit less skilled employees or people that can be trained, you're going to have more people that need a job. So it's going to be a little bit easier on the labor side. On the material side, that Steve didn't address it completely, but I think there's some materials that are just going to have a shortage and the costs are going to spike, and others maybe that are oil-based and be able to produce for cheaper, the prices will go down. So the inflation numbers the next couple of months are going to be really misleading because I think you're going to have this mix of things that had a ton of inflation and some that are a lot cheaper.
Yeah, shameless plug for our Next Up initiative. In this market now that is shrunk for a moment, there's a lot of young people that coming out of this we're going to need, and we can't take our eye off the ball as far as getting them when we can, and it's safe to do, understanding how to get involved in our industry. So we don't want to be in the same situation, a year from now when we need them. So let's make sure that everybody considers how do you get young people that are interested in the trades to get involved when you can. So as we ramp back up, we continue to support the workforce and hopefully have less of a shortage, in correlation.
I think you're going to have wait to get into that program. I think it is completely changed. A lot of those people have been working in retail. I mean, and that's a great job. So they're
still, the average age of a plumber and electrician is still in their upper 50s. So regardless of what's happening at the moment, we still need a lot of people in the trades to support our industry.
Oh, you're going to get them.
And any other questions, or Todd, did you want to make another comment, or Leanne, did you want to look at one other question?
There's quite a few here, Bill. Can you expand on what your best predictions are for the fall off in multifamily and single family projects? You mentioned a 14% rate, but can you compare and contrast multifamily versus single family?
You're not going to like this. So think about the apartment industry. First of all, the first 2 weeks they had a surge. Everybody got the hell out of their apartment into mom and dad's. We even saw a surge into people renting single family rental homes because they just didn't want to be surrounded by that many people and touching the same number of doorknobs. Then the federal government said, hey, no problem, don't pay your rent this month. So our early indicator is that 9% of renters have not paid their rent this month. So and that's just kind of getting started. The apartment guys that we're talking to, including some of the top associations, think May is going to be a lot worse. Then I'm going to layer on top of that, we're at a 33-year high in multifamily construction. So all those projects are going to finish and dump empty apartment units on the market. I think, and in the apartment industry is generally a pretty low profit, lots of debt business. We're really, really bearish on apartments. And so, you know, I think the single family business is much better. Most people bought their home a long time ago. We did not have a surge in activity, so it's not like most of America is levered 95% on their house. You know, I think something like a third of them don't even have a mortgage at all. The activity in single family is just going to be so much better than multifamily coming out of this. It's not even going to be close.
Thanks, John. Another question, are there strategies our designers and remodelers can employ to better prepare for the downturn?
Yeah, I'll throw out a couple things. Immediately, think smaller ticket, like today. I'm hearing, in addition to what the data says, I'm hearing anecdotes on the ground of projects that were signed, like really expensive $250,000 plus kitchen remodels, where that person's clearly still employed, they're wealthy enough to pay for it, and they cut down the ticket to $150,000. Still an expensive remodel, but all of that money's coming down in the project. The thumb rule is for every 1% decline in real income that we see, you see the average ticket drop by about 2%. So that's a pretty big haircut, and we see the overall spending is impacted by more than that. So think of ways to do the same project, but with at lower price point materials, and then also be super cognizant of your variable cost. That's going to matter a lot.
Great information, Todd. We have time for one more, Leanne.
Bill, there's been a lot of questions asking about where to get this information. There have been questions about whether this will be shared as recorded. It will. I know Bill's going to address that in a minute. If we can do one more question. This event has created a new normal for people working from home. Do you see an influx of more workers starting to work from home instead of commuting to the office?
Well, we've been wondering when that was going to happen for a very long time. Just maybe we're biased because we work that way. I mean, Steve's in San Luis Obispo, Todd's in Green Bay, I'm in California. We've been using Zoom forever. It works great for us, and I think it's clearly going to work for more and more people. So the answer is yes. We should be checking the home office solutions remodeling on Google, because I'm sure a lot of people are looking for that. Steve, you wanted to talk a little bit about the pulse survey we are doing with the NKBA, and then also, you know, a lot of this information, this is what we do for a living, so we charge for it. So I mean, we're happy to do all these things, but if you want to be following this every week and you're a pretty good sized company, just let one of us know and we'll get back to you with the costs and things. But Steve, did you want to talk about the pulse survey?
Yeah, John, thanks.
Like it went dark there on us. I don't know what happened. Do you want to handle it?
I'm not sure if anyone can hear me. It looks like my mic is working. Turns out Zoom may not always work. But so yeah, as John mentioned, we do a pulse survey, and it's in the field right now. We're trying to do it weekly to kind of really understand a backlog perspective of projects versus what's the current cancellation rate, and just really trying to get that week by week read. Todd, if you'd like to talk a little about it, internet might not be long enough for me to keep going.
Sure. Yeah. So the quick answer is you're going to get a survey, or you'll have the option to take our survey, or make sure that you follow the survey that we're putting out. Every week we're getting a pulse on what's going on in business. And it's going to be different between builders versus remodelers versus kitchen and bath, different pieces of the business. We're going to measure it all. And that'll give us an early read on when things begin to improve and when they begin to turn. And we'll have additional color by area.
Yeah, so as Leanne was stating, just as we wrap up, we continue to gather new timely data to share with the community, in a partnership with John Burns Real Estate Consulting on KBMI. So look for that. That's available at no charge to all members and non-members, actually. Beginning of May is when the Q1 KBMI will come out, and you can check nkba.org/insights for that. Keep tabs on that page, as well as NKBA newsfeed for further updates. Steve and Todd talked about the Pulse. So this new NKBA Pulse is a collaboration with John's group to provide even more timely information. That will be available also to members at no charge through our website at Insights. So look for all that. If you need deep dive and great, fantastic data, then you need to call John or Todd or Steve, because yes, it will cost you, but it will be worth it. And they're just a fantastic resource of knowledge for any business. So I encourage you to, any of you who are really looking for deep data outside of what NKBA can provide you through the membership, please consider what John and Steve and Todd can offer. On Monday on Fox Business, I'll be live with Melissa Francis between 4 and 5, talking about what's going on in the market. I'm also going to be on CNBC next week, later in the week, to talk to Brian Sullivan about the same thing, just trying to keep NKBA members present in the media and thought leadership for the association. Thank you sincerely, John, Todd, and Steve. These three have not slept all that much, and you guys look fabulous. So no effort on that. It's just, I know the work that you're trying to do for your customers, and we are grateful association-wise to have our partnership with all of you, to take 30 minutes of your time to share your knowledge with our members. Hopefully everybody enjoyed it. It will be available, as Leanne said. A recording of Brave New Business will be posted on the NKBA YouTube channel as well as Facebook. So anybody who you want to share this with will be able to watch it beginning to end there. Next week's topic, weathering the storm, navigating the stimulus package. So joining us will be David Murphy, Senior Vice President of Investments, and James Jack, Executive Director of Strategic Client Segments, both from UBS Wealth Management. Links to register for that forum will be posted on social media, my Twitter and LinkedIn pages as well. Because that is evolving rapidly as all this is, and we want to be timely with the data for all of you to share, to receive on next week's forum. Starting Friday, you'll be able to pre-submit advanced questions through NKBA social channels. So we be sure to impact where you are in that process of applying or not, or wherever you are in the timeline, to have UBS give you good advice. Until then, stay safe and well, and we'll see you all next Thursday. Thanks again, John, Todd, and Steve.